Have you ever met someone who finds strange patterns in the way leaves fall? Someone who reads an old novel and talks about it like they've lived inside the story? Someone who enjoys their own made-up routines that seem odd to others, but feel deeply comforting to them? That person might just be a true INFJ. INFJs are known as the rarest personality type. They're thoughtful, quiet, and creative and intense in ways most people don't see right away. But what really sets them apart isn't just how they think, it's what they're drawn to. While many people enjoy common hobbies or everyday topics, INFJs have interests that often seem strange to others. These aren't just niche hobbies or uncommon likes. These are the quiet, deep fascinations that light them up inside. Most of the time, they won't even talk about these interests unless someone asks. They keep them private because they know they're different. But being different is part of what makes the INFJ so special. They don't chase what's popular. They're not looking for attention. They're searching for meaning. And they often find it in things that most people ignore. This video isn't about typical INFJ traits. It's about the truly weird things that only the real, deep, true INFJ is interested in. Not just the ones who know their personality type, but the ones who live it every day, in the quiet corners of their lives. These are the INFJs who feel more connected to the wind than to a crowd. The ones who notice the symbolism in a painting no one else looked at. The ones who collect old books no one else reads. The ones who feel more at home in a fantasy world than in small talk at a party. To outsiders, these interests might seem strange. Even other introverts might not fully get it. But to the true INFJ, they're not just hobbies, they're portals. They're keys to understanding themselves, the world, and the hidden truths that connect everything. So if you've ever felt drawn to something weird, deep, or totally different, and didn't know why, you might be a true INFJ. Let's explore the 6 weird things that call out to this rare personality type. We'll start with something that might sound small, but means everything to the INFJ, seeing meaning in everyday details. Thing number 1, meaningful symbolism in everyday details. True INFJs don't just look at the world, they read it. They notice things others walk right past. A feather on the sidewalk. A repeated number on a clock. A sentence in a book that feels like it was written just for them. These little moments aren't random to an INFJ, they're signs. Symbols. Clues that connect them to something bigger. This deep focus on symbolism is not something they try to do. It happens naturally. While others might see a bird flying by and forget about it, the INFJ may see it as a symbol of change, freedom, or spiritual growth. These thoughts happen instantly, and they feel deeply personal. INFJs often create their own private meanings. Maybe they always notice blue butterflies when they're about to make a big life decision. Maybe the sound of distant wind chimes reminds them of someone they once loved. These meanings don't have to make sense to anyone else. They matter because they connect the INFJ to their inner world. This interest in symbolism can go even further. INFJs may study mythology, art, or dream interpretation, not for fun, but because they're looking for patterns that help them understand life. A painting might hold secret messages. A story might reflect something they've experienced. A dream might carry a warning or a truth. To many people, this seems strange. Why are you thinking so deeply about that? They might ask. It's just a song, it's just a cloud. But the INFJ knows it's not just anything. It's part of a larger pattern. And for them, it's not weird, it's necessary. This interest can sometimes feel isolating. It's not easy to talk about signs and hidden meanings without sounding odd. That's why many INFJs keep these thoughts to themselves. But inside, these small signs help guide their choices, shape their emotions, and give them a sense of connection to the world around them. Symbolism also helps INFJs make sense of their emotions. When they can't explain what they feel in words, they often use symbols instead. A river might represent how they feel about time passing. A locked door might reflect an emotion they're not ready to face. These ideas aren't just abstract, they help the INFJ survive emotionally. True INFJs also use symbolism in their creative work. Their writing, art, and even their conversations are full of layers. A story isn't just a story, it's a reflection of a deep emotional truth. A poem might be simple on the surface, but full of hidden messages. Even a quiet drawing can carry the weight of years of feeling. In short, the INFJ doesn't just experience life, they translate it into symbols. They see what others miss. And while that might seem weird, it's a big part of what makes them who they are. Thing number 2, fictional worlds that mirror their inner life. There's something magical about a fictional world that feels more real than the one we live in. For INFJs, these imagined places, whether in books, movies, or even games, are not just entertainment. They're mirrors. They reflect back the INFJ's emotions, hopes, struggles, and dreams in a way the real world rarely does. A true INFJ doesn't just read a novel. They live inside it. They don't just watch a movie. They feel it in their bones. And the stories that speak to them most are the ones with emotional depth, moral questions, and characters who are complex and struggling, just like them. They're especially drawn to characters who are misunderstood, quiet, or hiding some inner world. These characters often feel like INFJs in disguise. Whether it's a lonely wizard, a brave but broken hero, or a thinker who's been cast out by society, INFJs see themselves in these figures. These stories give them space to feel without judgment. In the real world, they may be told to lighten up or stop thinking so much. But in a fictional world, being deep, emotional, and thoughtful is part of the journey. It's valued. And that makes these stories feel like home. True INFJs also look for symbolism in fiction. A castle isn't just a building, it might represent safety or isolation. A long journey might reflect personal growth. A battle might symbolize an internal struggle. These deeper meanings help the INFJ process their own thoughts in a safe and private way. They also love stories that ask big questions. What is the right thing to do when there's no easy answer? Can one person really make a difference? What does it mean to belong? These themes aren't just interesting, they're personal. INFJs spend much of their inner life thinking about questions like these, and seeing them play out in a story gives them peace and clarity. It's not unusual for a true INFJ to revisit the same story over and over. Every time they return, they notice something new. A sentence they missed. A character's pain they didn't fully understand before. The story grows with them and helps them grow too. This interest might seem odd to people who prefer fast-paced, surface-level entertainment. They might not understand why the INFJ is crying over a fictional character or writing long journal entries about a movie from 10 years ago. But to the INFJ, it all makes sense. These stories mean something. They speak the truth in a way real life often doesn't. And sometimes these fictional worlds offer hope. They show that even quiet people can change the world. That being different doesn't mean being broken. That there's beauty in the struggle. And for the INFJ, that message is more valuable than anything. Thing number 3, rare or ancient wisdom. True INFJs often find themselves drawn to things that feel old, timeless, or almost forgotten. While others are chasing the latest trend or scrolling through quick content, INFJs are digging through old books, studying symbols, or reading texts that haven't been popular for centuries. They're pulled toward rare knowledge, ideas that feel deeper than what most people talk about. This can show up in many ways. Some INFJs become fascinated with philosophy, not the kind taught in school, but obscure thinkers who looked at life through a different lens. Others explore ancient spiritual practices like alchemy, astrology, or mysticism, not to follow a trend, but because they sense there's something true hidden inside those teachings. They might read about energy systems, chakras, or historical religious texts, not for attention, and not because they fully believe everything they read, but because they're searching for truth. A kind of truth that feels bigger than everyday logic. Something that helps explain why they feel so different, or why they experience life the way they do. INFJs often feel like they've lived more than one lifetime. Even if they don't believe in past lives, there's something about old teachings that speaks to their soul. The language might be strange. The symbols might be hard to decode. But for them, it feels familiar. It feels like home. Some might call this weird. After all, who reads books from 300 years ago for fun? Who gets excited by ancient symbols or long-forgotten rituals? But to the INFJ, these things are alive with meaning. They contain ideas that never age, truths about people, emotion, purpose, and the spirit that still matter today. This love for rare wisdom also makes INFJs excellent researchers. When something catches their interest, they don't skim the surface. They go deep. They read articles, watch documentaries, and make personal notes. They might spend weeks learning about a single topic, not because anyone asked them to, but because it fills something inside them. It's not about being smarter. It's about feeling connected to something bigger. The INFJ often senses that modern life is missing something. That in the rush of now, people have forgotten what matters. So they reach back into older systems, older stories, older truths to make sense of things. They also enjoy talking to wise, older people. Not just because of their age, but because of their life experience. INFJs are good at spotting true wisdom, no matter where it comes from. They value insight more than opinion, and when someone speaks from deep understanding, they listen closely. Even their creative work is touched by this love for old knowledge. They might write stories full of ancient symbols. Their art may include forgotten languages or classic architecture. Their playlists might include haunting sounds from faraway cultures. They bring the past into the present, not to be trendy, but to stay rooted in what's real. This deep connection to rare or ancient wisdom isn't about living in the past. It's about remembering what the present has forgotten. And that's something only the true INFJ truly understands. Thing number 4, quiet rituals that center the soul. True INFJs don't just go through the day. They shape it, quietly and carefully, with small routines that feel like rituals. These are not religious ceremonies or loud spiritual practices. They're simple, silent actions that bring peace, meaning, and grounding. To an outsider, these rituals might look like regular habits. A certain way of making tea. A 5-minute pause before starting the day. Lighting a candle before writing. Sitting in silence at the same time every night. But for the INFJ, these moments aren't just habits, they're sacred. They give life rhythm. They help them feel like themselves. INFJs live in their heads. Their minds are always turning, thinking, questioning, imagining, remembering. And when their thoughts get too loud, these rituals help quiet the noise. They bring the INFJ back into their body, back into the present. What's unique is that these rituals are almost always private. INFJs rarely talk about them. They might not even realize how much these routines matter until they're interrupted. But when something breaks the flow, a skipped ritual, a busy morning, a loud distraction, it throws them off. They feel unsettled, even anxious. These moments are often creative too. Journaling is a common one. Not to track tasks, but to pour out thoughts and emotions that don't have a place anywhere else. Many INFJs write every day, not for others, but for themselves. It's part therapy, part exploration, part release. Some INFJs light incense or use essential oils. Not as a trend, but as a way to shift the energy of a room. Others might take short walks at the same time each day, or play the same song when they need to reset. These actions seem small, but they carry emotional weight. What's strange is how much these quiet rituals mean, even when no one else notices them. The INFJ might have a certain mug they always use when they feel low, a spot in the house that calms them, a book they reread during hard times. These things aren't random. They're anchors. Because INFJs often keep their emotions inside, these rituals help express what words can't. A gentle hand on a notebook says, "I'm listening to myself." A slow breath before sleep says, "It's safe to rest now." These are messages of comfort the INFJ gives to themselves without speaking a word. To others, these routines might look odd. Why does it matter if the candle is lit just right? Why walk the same path every day? But for the INFJ, it matters because it feels right. It helps them stay connected to who they are in a world that often pulls them in too many directions. And when life gets chaotic, these quiet rituals become lifelines. They remind the INFJ that even when the outside world doesn't make sense, there is still peace, still meaning, still a pattern they can hold on to. Thing number 5, evil or tragic villains with complex motives. While many people cheer for the hero, the true INFJ often finds themselves watching the villain. Not because they support evil, but because they're fascinated by why that character became who they are. They want to understand the pain, the story, the turning point. They want to see the human being behind the mask. For INFJs, surface-level characters don't hold much interest. They want depth. And when a story presents a villain who is broken, misunderstood, or secretly hurting, that's when the INFJ leans in. They don't excuse the harm, but they can't help but explore the layers beneath it. They might ask, what trauma shaped this person? What emotion pushed them too far? Was there a moment when things could have turned out differently? These questions aren't just about the story. They're about understanding human nature. And the INFJ never stops trying to understand. Many INFJs relate to the misunderstood parts of villains. Not because they've done anything evil, but because they know what it's like to be misread, judged, or pushed aside. They recognize the loneliness, the longing for purpose, the feeling of not belonging. And when a villain shows those same traits, it speaks to something real. These characters often mirror the INFJ's own struggle with darkness. INFJs are not all light and love. They have shadows too. They battle anger, fear, and doubt just like anyone else. But they rarely show it. So when they see a character wrestling with inner darkness, it feels honest. It gives them a space to explore their own shadows without fear. This interest in villains isn't about glamorizing harm. It's about recognizing the complexity of people. The INFJ believes no one is just one thing. Even the cruelest characters started as children, as dreamers, as people with hope. That truth matters to them. In fact, INFJs often imagine how things could have gone differently. They rewrite endings in their heads. They think about redemption. They picture healing. Because underneath their love of complexity, INFJs believe in growth, even for the broken. To others, this might seem weird. Why are you defending the bad guy, they might ask. But the INFJ isn't defending the actions. They're exploring the soul. They're looking at the person behind the choices and seeing something most people miss. This deep interest shows up in their writing, their art, even their playlists. Songs about inner conflict, pain, and duality hit them hard. Stories with moral gray areas feel more real. And in every case, the INFJ is not just entertained, they're learning something about humanity and about themselves. Thing number 6, long, wordless hikes in nature. A true INFJ can walk through a forest for hours without saying a word, and feel more understood than they ever have with another person. While many people go outside to socialize, take pictures, or get exercise, INFJs go to disappear. They don't need a trail partner, a plan, or even a destination. What they want is silence, space, and the freedom to feel without interruption. To the INFJ, nature is more than scenery. It's a living presence. The sound of wind through leaves, the slow rhythm of footsteps on dirt, the feeling of sun, cold, or rain on the skin. These details create a kind of inner calm that's hard to find anywhere else. Most people don't see the forest the way an INFJ does. Others may be talking, checking their phones, or rushing to finish the trail. But the INFJ notices everything. The way one tree bends toward the light, the sound of one bird calling to another, the strange patterns on rocks, roots, or water. To them, it's like the world is whispering secrets, and they're finally able to hear. This interest in silent walking might seem odd. Why go somewhere if you're not going to talk, take pictures, or share it with others? But for the INFJ, that's the point. These walks aren't about productivity or performance. They're about reconnecting with the earth, with the spirit, and with themselves. In these wordless hikes, the INFJ finally finds what they're missing in daily life: clarity. The noise of the world fades. Their overthinking slows down. The emotions they've been carrying have space to move and settle. In nature, they're allowed to feel without judgment, to think without pressure, and to breathe without distraction. These walks also help INFJs process their emotions. If something has been bothering them, an argument, a question, a heavy feeling, they may not even need to solve it. The act of walking through trees or by water brings natural healing. It grounds them. It reminds them that life is bigger than whatever is in their head. Some INFJs build whole routines around their outdoor time. They visit the same trail. They bring the same journal. They sit in the same spot to think. To others, this might look boring or repetitive. But to the INFJ, it's sacred. And it's not just forests. Some prefer empty beaches, rocky coastlines, quiet fields, or even graveyards. The place doesn't matter as much as the feeling of stillness. The chance to let go of words and just be. If they return to the same places often, those spots begin to hold emotional meaning. A certain tree might remind them of a time they were healing. A stretch of trail might feel like part of their personal story. These spaces become private sanctuaries, places where they can step out of the world and into their own truth. Others may never understand this. They may see the INFJ walking alone and assume they're lonely or lost. But what they don't realize is that the INFJ is exactly where they need to be, surrounded by silence, held by nature, finally at peace. The INFJ is often called rare, not just because of how they think, but because of what they love. While others chase popularity, quick fun, and group approval, the true INFJ walks a different path. A quieter path, a stranger path, but also a more meaningful one. They're interested in things most people overlook. They find beauty in broken characters, messages in nature, and comfort in silence. They read the hidden lines, ask the deep questions, and follow the strange call of truth, even when no one else hears it. To the outside world, these interests may seem weird, too emotional, too intense, too quiet. But to the INFJ, these things aren't odd, they're essential. They're how they stay grounded, how they grow, how they keep their spirit alive in a loud and distracted world. Each weird interest tells a story of someone who feels deeply, someone who notices what others don't, someone who walks through life asking not just, what do I want, but what does this mean? If you're an INFJ and you've ever felt strange for liking the things you do, this is your reminder, you're not alone. These weird fascinations are part of your gift. They're proof that your depth isn't just real, it's rare and needed. And if you're not an INFJ but know someone who is, take time to notice what they care about. Ask about their favorite story. Join them for a quiet walk. Let them show you the things that matter to them, even if they seem odd at first. You might be surprised by how much you learn, not just about them, but about yourself. In a world that rushes, the INFJ slows down. In a world that judges, they feel. In a world that forgets, they remember. And that, more than anything, is what makes their weird not just interesting, but beautiful.